You say hi, Seamus. I say hi.
It, and then
you say I say you say,
and then I say, and then you say. Go on. So, hello everybody.
Oh, sorry.
Hello everybody. Welcome. Hello. Hi. Hello everybody.
Right.
Welcome. Don't say it right in the middle of it. Hello everybody. I'm Seamus.
And I'm Barry.
And welcome to the Design and Podcast. Wow, 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 wow. Play that fucking music, yo. Should we do it again because I swore?
We're going to be talking about UI and UX design, graphic design, branding, career tips, and the business of design. Enjoy! How's your week been?
Good. Busy. Lots going on. Just been a busy week. So not last night, the night before, I was fully wired and I got to sleep like 3.
Yeah. I don't know. It might have been that I had one too many coffees yesterday. I usually just have one a day. And sometimes I try to just keep coffee out of my diet, but
yeah,
I'm addicted, just like everyone else.
Yes, yes, you are a dick. Yes. We're recording the Zoom. I'm recording here. You're recording there.
Yeah, we've got everything sorted.
How about you? What have you been up to? You've been busy in the podcast sphere.
Yeah,
did
I've
some
been in
podcast
the
design.
Zone. I've been, working and art directing our website, making tweaks, working on the copy, trying to set our tone of voice and the design. Having a lot of back and forth with you on that, which has been great. And yeah, just getting everything ready for us to publish, and I'm really excited about it actually.
Yeah, me too.
I think it's going to be a joint big focus of ours for quite a long time to come, and I actually think if we just stick at it, it's going to be something really good.
Yeah, me too. I'm really looking forward to just keep doing it. I'm enjoying these half-hour power hours on a Friday morning.
Yeah, it is good. I do think every now and then maybe let's try a different time.
Yeah,
just to see if we can bring a different energy at points.
To see if our voice just sort of changes throughout the day and gets a little bit higher and more energetic. Because currently we sound like this. Well, what's going on with you? You've got a little baby on the way. In 10 days? No, sorry, not 10 days.
10 days? Well, maybe. You know something that I don't?
You just went from white to pale in a second.
We've got 4 weeks. 4 weeks until baby is due. We've got another scan today at the hospital.
Exciting.
So, yeah, it's always exciting.
Is this where you found out you got twins?
No, that was the 12-week scan where we find out how many you've got in there. Just the one.
Just the one.
You know how we all use a lot of stock imagery?
Yes.
But has anyone ever put much thought into stock copy for products and websites? What are your thoughts around that?
I've never seen it before. Have you?
No, not until recently. There is now a service a plugin, I believe, for Figma, and I'm not sure if it's Sketch, and it's called UI Copy. So you can be designing a checkout process, and there's readily tested copy that you can use to implement to speed up the entire design process. I thought it was quite a neat idea. But then again, just like as we see the same stock imagery all over the place, we're just going to see the same copy being used over and over, which might diminish the brand.
Yeah, I think the stock world is the world that all photographers photographers have been worrying about this for years, and now we're starting to worry about it as designers. It's quite a scary space when you think about it, especially if your business is aimed towards supplying design for mom and pop shops, local clothing shops or whatever it is, that they can just go on and buy some stock imagery maybe and some stock icons and graphics, and if they can buy text, if they can buy copy, then again that just eliminates another person in the process.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's really thought provoking when I read it last night, and I just couldn't come to a conclusion of where we sit as designers when it comes to, because me and you can go onto Fiverr. Me and you can get a client,
Mm.
and we can charge that client £4,000, and we can go to Fiverr and get someone to do a logo for 40 quid, and we make the markup because
That's not going to work out.
No, but it's not going to work out. But it's the idea that can be done. It's the same with photography. You can go to stock image instead of hiring a photographer for £1,000, you can spend.
I'm not sure.
£300.
I think I've got a feeling that this plugin that's been launched is kind of an in between. So instead of maybe using lorem ipsum, you've got a selection of copy that makes more sense for the instance that you're actually designing, such as a checkout process or maybe an about page, or so it's there to actually make the design work that you're working on more informative at a draft stage for the client to go through and say, oh, they'll actually read through and be like, oh yeah, so this is the kind of copy that we need for this section. Oh, best get it over to them, rather than just seeing lorem ipsum everywhere.
Oh, so you're seeing it as and to be used for design proposals, not and feedback, not for actual final output.
I think that's how it should be used, because otherwise, like we've said, we're just going to see the same copy being used all over the place.
Yeah, I hope not.
Might be. It could be useful. It could be a useful tool for UI and UX designers, at least.
Yeah.
Having the copy at hand within the tool that you're using to design, I think, just it could potentially boost the speed of getting through the design process, so that there's not, you're not having to trawl the internet to find the right copy to use within that mockup. It's just an idea. It could boost productivity. Who knows? But I thought it was an interesting idea.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a really interesting idea when you talk about it from a checkout point of view on a website or for a homepage on a website. But I think when I'm trying to think of it in doing a campaign terms, can you just get some sort of words together and then you reword that to fit the brief? It's sort of endless once you start thinking about it, where it can be implemented.
Mm-hmm. I guess it's going to be best implemented in web and product design. I don't think it would work in the projects that you work on, like for big advertising companies, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, it could work for brand identity projects, because you could get a line that you like and just have it reworded yourself. So it could sort of spark ideas and create and move things on creatively and how you do approach a project. So yeah, it's quite interesting. Obviously,
it kind of it leads into my next question as well. So I read an article last week by a guy called Andy Budd. The article's called "The Future of Design Without Designers," and it talks about design automation, and it touches on things such as, will design ever be automated? To what extent will it be automated? Will design software become intelligent? So is it going to take over aspects of the design process? And will designers ever be removed from teams, allowing the project managers and developers and executives to decide on the creative direction instead? What's your thought on that?
Well, that's the question that
I know it's deep.
It's deep, and it makes me reevaluate my career choices. I think there's three questions there, isn't it? The final one is, should designers have a seat at the table, which is a whole Silicon Valley conversation, which isn't really relevant to anyone. It's just a load of bullshit, to be honest. But the first two I think are really interesting. Will design ever be automated? Which is a really good segue from stock copy. Will copy ever be automated as well? And then, will design software become intelligent?
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure in like 20 years' time, maybe 100 years' time, a computer will be able to generate 10,000 poster ideas within a second.
Yeah.
And they'll be able to take the brand identity system and plug it into the computer, and it'll knock out loads of different variations and iterations of design, which is really scary actually when you think about that. What's the point of me then? And then you've got to think about, well, what's the difference between what goes on in my head to what happens from the output of a computer? And how I'm sort of trying to work it out is, maybe it's we're the diamonds that are pulled out of the ground rather than the synthetic diamonds that are created in the lab. They're both exactly the same and look identical, but there's a massive price difference between them both. So that's my thoughts so far. I haven't really got a conclusion for you quite yet. But what's your opinion? What do you think?
Yeah, I think I agree with you, to be honest with you. I like the comparison that you made with diamonds. But I also think computers are going to be able to analyze and create things and, like you say, smash out 100 posted variants in 2 seconds in a few years' time, maybe 10 years or so. I'm not sure. But yeah, I guess it comes back to how we define creativity and good design and good user experience, and whether or not computers can replicate that. Um, and as far as I'm aware, computers aren't creative; they're just great at solving problems and replicating processes. Um, but then there's the rise of artificial intelligence. So it's a really difficult question. I don't have an answer to it either, but I thought it's a very thought-provoking article to read if anyone's interested in reading it.
Yeah, I'm gonna quit my job.
I think our jobs are safe for quite a while.
Until we retire.
Until we retire.
I think when you look at the law industry, you can sort of predict that it's going to happen. It's going to become automated because it's black or white. This is the law, and you've broken it, or you've broken it to this extent, or you've bent the law, and there's ramifications for what you do from breaking that law. So it could end up being an app on what you've done. If you want to go sue someone, you can type in the questions and answers, and they'll give you the answers, and you can figure out what's your next steps. So I think when it comes to law, it almost feels like it's going to happen. But with our industry, we're quite an emotive industry where we are touching everyone and listening from everyone, taking in everyone's information from all different angles, from strategy, from tone of voice, from creative, and from directors, and from clients, and from the end user. And we've all got to come up with a perfect orange to match that. And that's my interpretation of all those conversations, where your version of, you might not pick orange, you might pick yellow as the primary color for that project.
Yeah.
It is a very emotive job. It's I suppose it's a bit like that third question you had, is will designers ever have a seat at the table? It's like, well, why would you want a seat at the table? Our whole job as designers is to be arm's length distance away from the business stuff, and arm's length away from the HR, and arm's length away from the customer. We're not supposed to be at the table making business decisions. We're supposed to be figuring out what's going on within the business, within the client, and how do we get the business and the client talking. And if we can make the client or the customer more happy, they're going to spend more money, which is going to make the business happier. So I don't really understand. So to bring it back to, will it be automated as well? I just think it's very subjective still what we do to a point, and we're going to need brains. We're going to need humans on that.
I think some parts of the design industry is probably more subjective than other parts. But you're right, computers just smashing out random interfaces probably isn't good enough. And as a designer, that's really an expert in their craft. You'll understand that there's more complexities to just applying colors to a screen or a UI, and dropping in a few buttons. There's more thought than that goes into the process, and more research and in fact the research involves speaking to other humans and real users. So I think it's good to have an open mind that it could be taken over by artificial intelligence in the future, because I think that's how you get caught out if you're just under the assumption that no, nothing's going to disrupt the industry that much. But just to be aware of it and to see what happens, I suppose, in the coming years.
Yeah. So there's a possibility from this conversation that we just end up being art directors, and sitting at a computer and going through iterations and selecting the best ones and moving on and doing 10 or maybe just doing 100 projects in one day.
Yeah, you never know. Nobody knows. But for now, we're not.
Let's see if we make it that long. All right. Just to be
it's turned into quite a depressing topic, actually. Let's move on.
Yeah. We're all going to be fine. We'll all design t-shirts. Computers can't wear t-shirts. Better, more fun game.
Oh, mate. Seamus, my computer, it's like it's on crack cocaine, honestly. It's so fast now. I'm on, let me give you some background. I work on a 27-inch iMac that is late 2012, so that's how old it is. And oh my God, it's been lagging so much over the last few months. And yesterday, I installed some new memory. Oh, It's flying. It's like having a new computer again. It's amazing.
Did you clean the screen to make it feel better?
I cleaned the screen, put the new memory chips in, and yeah, away we go.
Insert some sound effects.
Rocket.
So what's that?
Rocket.
How does that work actually? Because that's completely beyond me what you actually said. So
what? You flip. I bought a RAM.
Okay.
I bought so 4 memory chips. Very technical name I just used. Flip the
what size are they?
Like about, I don't know, like 3 inches across. So you just flip the iMac on its back, pop out a cap, and take chips out, put chips in, put the lid back on, turn it on, and it's done. It's as easy as that.
A little bit of vinegar.
Yeah.
Done. So it's actually quite easy. And tell me, can you talk about the cost?
I think I paid 120 quid.
And now your computer is back to reboot style, so it's almost worth it. It's probably saving you that.
Definitely worth it.
It's probably saving that amount of time in a week. So you made the money back.
Yeah, I mean, I'd still be loading up my iMac now to talk to you, if not.
So can you get them for laptops, or is it just the Mac, the iMacs?
Probably get it for laptops as well. I'm not sure though.
Can you get it for a phone that's just went over its warranty period, starting to slow down and it doesn't lock anymore? I've got some pretty good feedback over the years, and I've got some pretty bad feedback. And I wanted to know if you had any stories of the worst piece of feedback you've ever got from a client or a mentor or a colleague. I can go into mine if you want.
Yeah, go into yours first.
So when we were in university, our professor, tutor, what do you call them? The person teaching us, the teacher. He was called Alan. He's about 6'10", really nice guy, really talented. He took me in for a meeting. He says, "Look, Seamus, you're a bit like my dog." It's like, what? He's like, you're a bit like my dog in a field full of birds trying to catch a bird that can't actually catch a bird because it keeps jumping towards the birds, and then another bird catches his eye, and then it leaps for that bird as well and ended up catching nothing. I was like, great. What are you talking about? Why are you telling me this? He says, well, you're doing all these projects, but you're getting nothing done. I was like, oh, that's a good point.
So was that the best piece of feedback you got?
That's the best piece. Fuck you. That was the worst piece of feedback.
No, I think that's really, really good feedback.
It was incredibly good feedback.
He's telling you that you need to hone in on one project. You need to be hyper focused sometimes to make a success of something.
Yeah, well, to be fair, from that meeting, it did change my career, my trajectory.
Yeah. Like, so, you were spinning too many plates is essentially what he was saying.
Yeah.
I agree with him.
Compared to a dog, could have called me like his son who spins plates rather than his dog who chases birds in a field.
Yeah.
Right, that's probably the best piece of feedback. The worst bit of feedback is I was interning for £300 a month at a place just off Old Street, and I was there for 6 months, and I got on relatively well with everyone, but I was crap. Barely knew how to use Photoshop. And this is my boss. We were in a meeting one day, the 10 of us. My boss says to me, leading up in the conversation, that, you know what, Seamus, you're a bit like my dog.
It always comes back to a dog.
I was like, what is wrong with these people? What's wrong with these 50-year-olds? You're a bit like my dog. I like it, but I wouldn't have it in the studio.
Oh, was that him firing you?
He didn't fire me from that either. No, that was his feedback.
In the studio?
Yeah, and still paid me at the end of the month, and I came in the next day and I got another month's pay.
I mean, you say paid you, it was £300 a month, which doesn't get you far in London.
Doesn't get me far at all. Got me
It
nowhere.
barely gets you a tube pass. Hi everyone, I'm Barry, the owner of the digital design agency Moken.Digital. We team up with startups, agencies and founders to design digital products and websites. If you're interested in learning more about the work we do at Moken, you can visit our website at www.moken.digital, and you can also check out our Instagram at @wearemoken.
Yeah, I had a really good question for you. Because you run an agency and I work in an agency, I think it'd be quite interesting to hear your opinion that if Google do a rebrand like they did, they've always done the rebrands in-house with their in-house design team. Now they've got loads of different design departments within what's going on there, so they have the resources to pull 6 people together to create a rebrand.
Yeah.
But I was wondering what do you think? Do you think a product company or an agency like yourself, like what we work in, should be doing the rebrand itself, or they should be outsourcing it to another agency to do?
I think a hybrid option is best. I think you should start in-house, see what you end up with, but then if possible, I think you should hire external eyes to give their take on it as well, in a nutshell. I think you get the best of best worlds. You might be able to merge some of the ideas, or you might notice that the in-house team was actually way too close to the brief in the first place.
Yeah, I think that's.
What do you think?
Well, I suppose that the companies we're talking about all have design departments, and if we ignore the Silicon Valley companies, which are all website-based companies, and their product is a website and have all website designers, if we could ignore them, park them to the side, and talk about maybe a streetwear or a fashion company who have fashion and graphics designers in-house, they would never. Well, some of them would, but they most likely would just hire an agency to create a rebrand for them, because they don't understand strategy and they don't understand creative output, and then all they understand is the design side of it. What's the actual colors and the output of the project?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's all dependent on your in-house skill set as well, right? But you could maybe have a team in-house to form the brief, to do some initial research and then to hand it over. I don't know. But yeah, it depends on the team's skill set.
Yeah, I think that's right. So my last job, I was working with Charlie Gladstone and his companies as head of design, and we did all the when I came in, we pretty much rebranded everything over a year and a half, and we did that all in house. But we didn't want to go to an agency. But what we did is I tapped into my contacts, and design contacts, strategy contacts, and creative contacts, and we brought them in as consultants, and they gave us their opinion on the information that we found and strategy, and our interpretation of that information, and then they would give us opinion on both of those factors. And then the same with design, we would bring the amazing Kieran in, and he would look at my designs and go, I would do it like this, this, and this, and then be like, well, can you just go off and do that for a couple of days or a week? And
that's really interesting. What kind of strategy research do you have to do for a branding project? Does it involve going to talk to any of the customers or anything like that, or how do you set the goals and tone and ambition for the company in the strategy document?
Yeah, that's really good question. you got this point. The whole point of strategy is to find out the difference between Coca-Cola and Pepsi and what's the unique selling point between them. But we're talking about local brands. You look at the strategy. The strategy is about trying to find out who's your direct competitors and what do they all look like. What are all their logos in one page and what are all their colors? And do you want to fit into that same look and feel in that industry, or do you want to stand out? If you do, then you ask the client the question and then you figure out which avenue you want to go down. And it's the same with the fonts. You just sort of break down the brand systems. But that's from a design point of view and from competitors. And also it's about figuring out what your story is and what the brand story is and what's different between you and anyone else in the industry again. We're back. Sorry. Our batteries died. So strategy is about find out who you are and find out who your customer is and try to find a difference between your competitors, really, especially for a branding project is very important. And then all the information you gather influences design decisions. So don't pick the color blue because everyone uses the color blue. So you're starting to make design decisions just from that information. But what we usually move on from strategy is in the tone of voice. And they sort of interpret all that information and create a nice tone of voice guidelines document and nice phrases. And then we go into brand identity and we use that and move forward and try and come up with something that visually screams the words that are produced in the tone of voice document.
Cool. Because obviously I work mainly on the UI and UX side of the design industry, product design. Every now and then there's this collaboration with a graphic designer or a branding agency as such. And the strategy document, like how they come to their conclusions, has always been a bit of a mystery to me. So it was interesting to hear what kind of research actually goes into it.
I see it as, do you remember when we were in university, the amazing Ken Garland came in to talk to us? Mm-hmm. He said one thing in that talk I'll never forget. So important today as it was. He said two things in that talk that are incredibly important. But one of them in relation to this conversation was, our client isn't the 50-year-old business owner who's giving you the brief. Your client is the 10-year-old kid who's playing with the toy that the business is creating. So that's how I sort of approach strategy, is that don't worry about too much about the business and the people who work in the business, although it does help influence brand story and brand content. But worrying about what does the customer care about? Like why would they even bother looking at you? What's the unique selling point, and will they feel really cool when they're using your product, or will they feel not more comfortable with it? Strategy is just about figuring out what those motives are, to which then influence design decisions.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think, yeah, I guess so. I guess for some reason in my mind, I felt like there was more on the ground kind of research that's done as well, not just, looking through other brands and imagery. Like, is there actual workshops with the customers, and does that kind of stuff exist?
Yeah,
which I'm sure it does.
Yeah, if you've got big budgets, then usually it does. But strategy sort of you can get most of that information online.
Got you.
Just from going through forums and comments and etc. and social media platforms. But hearing people's opinions at first hand is also incredibly important and very influential. When I'm doing my strategy, I usually sit down with the business owners at some point, and then I talk to 10 employees within that at all different levels, and I ask them all the same 10 questions and see their answers and compare their answers and find out the business owners are like, yeah, everyone loves us, we're brilliant, we've got the best product out there. And then you speak to their mid-level employee who's well respected in the company. They're like, well, we're not really. These guys are actually doing this other company's doing a much better job than us. It's like, okay, brilliant. I've got the information. These are the guys to beat. And then 3 other people in the company say something similar. It's like, well, we report that back to the business owners. Is that, I'm not going to tell you who said this, but these companies are being perceived as much cooler, are much more influential than yours is. So let's have a look at that and figure out why. And then we get together with a couple of their clients or customers, another 10, and ask them the same questions and see if they're saying the same thing. So there is, but it's not like as much as when I'm working on strategy, it's not like IDO where you have so many questions that you sit down with so many people and try and figure out all the answers and then collect all that data and figure it out and speculate and come up with a conclusion. It's more based on feeling. It's like, well, actually, the feeling is you guys aren't as cool as your competitor, and we need to figure out why. And it's because you just sound a little bit dated, or you just look a little bit dated. Sometimes the answer. What about strategy for websites, designing websites, and from your point of view, and apps? Did you ever look into it, or do you ever feel it's important?
Yeah, so it's all centered around business goals, user goals, and then obviously once you have wireframes or the first round of designs for a product, you want to start testing. So you can create a prototype using something like just a static prototype is fine. Usually, you use Marvel app or InVision to create the prototype, and you can get it in front of users or the team. Marvel app actually have a feature for usability testing as well. So you can pass a link around and it will record the user's screen whilst they're using the prototype. And then it will collate all of those recordings, and you've got some data, some very early on data around how navigable these products are, and how the user is interacting with them. So you're by iterating at this stage in the product design process, you're actually saving your client a lot of money further down the line. Whereas, what I mean is, if they go into development and end up implementing those first draft designs without testing, and then they realize that, oh, actually, we need some tweaks, it's much more costly to get the developer or the development team to work back and make those changes. Whereas we can make those changes quite quickly, usually in the design before pushing into development.
So I suppose that's our answer to how do we come up with ideas, the big question, how does it happen? And mine is strategy influencing tone of voice, which influences design decisions. Yours is is very similar, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, with product design, you want to follow the most scientific approach available to you, but part of that is a user-centered design approach where you're actually gathering feedback from the users or observing the users in order to improve the overall experience of the product.
And do you ever look at competitors and trying to figure out how do you stand out to people who are doing a very similar?
Yeah, you don't want to blend in with competitors, so you want to try and offer something that's at least a little bit different. Um, and it's also great to see how competitors or brands that are comparable within other industries implement similar features. You can learn a lot from that, and then testing those ideas within your own brand or your own product.
Yeah. So, but some of those initial ideas that to get things when you're starting with a blank page, does that ever come from the mood boards that you mean starting, or is that just what's in your head? Or
Yeah, absolutely. Mood boards are useful. We just fill an artboard, a canvas with loads of imagery and start. I think, especially in the UI stage, it's nice to just be jamming, you know,
yep.
Starting off loose, seeing what styles you're coming up with, what systems are kind of starting to form. I think the early stage UI process is probably my favorite aspect of the design process. It's just quite loose and creative before you, and then you really start to tighten everything up and follow a good system.
So who makes the decisions on tightening stuff up? Is that your design team, or is that you art directing?
All of us really. We have great crit sessions. we're doing them more and more these days. And yeah, we just have an open discussion, and then it's usually me and Stuart, who is our lead designer, who make the final calls on what needs tightening up, and what should be put in front of the client.
Yeah, and then exploring more options off the top of that. So yeah,
Yeah.
geez, you wear a lot of hats. You ever think of taking a full-time job in an agency? You don't have to wear that many hats. You don't have to worry about getting clients. You got to worry about keeping them. That's it.
I enjoy being pulled, around here, there, and everywhere, and you just pick up so much knowledge working across the board, and I think it just adds to your value, and I just enjoy it. So, you wanted to talk a little bit about creative teams and how they differ from design and how they differ from artworking. Well, I've noticed this comment in Trello. So, what do you mean by that?
So, I've been working with this ad agency, and we've had a few interns in over the summer, and they've just sort of haven't got their head around this process or this I don't want to say a hierarchy, the different departments, and it usually takes me going to the pub with them to really lay it out. So I thought it might be worth exploring for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Where we have a strategy team who do all the stuff I just mentioned before and more. They're incredibly talented. And then that information goes to a creative team. Okay. And then they interpret what happened in strategy and come up with the ideas and the mood board. And then they move on to the third stage, which is design. And design look at these sketches and those mood boards and those ideas and those pieces of copy, and they pull them together into a really nice slide for presentation purposes for the client. And that's the three separate sort of different departments. Then there's account handlers, and there's who talk to the client to show the work, come back and forth, and there's finance, etc. There's loads of different departments, but those are the three core ones to do with the actual product that the agency produce. And I wanted to talk specifically about the difference between the creative team and the design team. So the creative team, when they get the brief, they're not like a team of 6 people that work together. They come in twos, but they come in, broadly speaking, one is an art director and the other is a copywriter. And both of them work as a team. They both graduate from university as a team, and they work through their job as their career as a team. And if one of them drops out or doesn't want to live in London anymore and the other one does, or one wants to live in Manchester or whatever, the team has to break up.
What happens then?
Career. Yeah, that's their career in jeopardy.
They have to start again.
They have to start again. They have to find a whole new creative partner and build that relationship up and start working a couple of ideas with them.
Creative speed dating?
They say, yeah, there is. There's a couple of things like that, and they're actually quite good. And sometimes there's jobs available for one of those roles, and then the 2 people who are in that role,
For a second, I thought we were about to create the design industry's version of Love Island.
Oh, if only.
So original. Just like the name of this podcast.
So good, we named it thrice.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting that they come in teams, and both of them come up with the ideas and the big blue sky thinking, and they come up with the text, and they come up with the mood board, and then they sit down with a design person, and that person will make that vision come to life on a spread or on a page or as a billboard or whatever the output is.
Okay.
So that's the differences between the two. And I think the next stage is a team of 3, and it should be the copywriter, the art director, and the designer pulled together rather than a team of 2.
Right, okay. So they can kind of go from ideation to the final artworking.
Yeah, exactly that. And they can crack out, and then that helps the design or the designers work in the creative space and coming up with the blue sky thinking. So it stops us becoming pigeonholed and design becoming automated, so that we become our own thinkers and our own we come up with our own ideas.
So these teams, like, what are they called? Are they advertising executives or what's
No, they're called creatives. Their actual title.
They're just
Creative.
creatives.
Yeah, that's their title. Is on their email signature is creative.
So across anything, like, you know, the agency might be designing a T-shirt or trainers or a website. Everything goes through them first before being passed on to a designer.
Yep, that's it. And we're pushing pixels around and creating that piece for them. Now there is a lot of collaboration between the two departments. You know, that's not going to work creative team because of this, but we can do this and makes it a little bit better and actually enhances the idea. So it's not as one dimensional as I'm breaking it out to be, but
Interesting.
broadly speaking,
I feel like
that's how it
it's
works.
an aspect of the design industry we weren't really told about
Not at all.
at university. So, what is the pathway to becoming a creative team, would you say, if you wanted to work as just a creative?
They regularly come from advertising course, you know, degree course, and they get together and they meet there, and then they move forward from there. But our head of creative, he was the designer right up till he was 28, and then he moved into creative. Incredibly talented guy. So he partnered up with someone, and then they've been smashing it for the past couple of years. So you can sort of get into it from as a designer, and you get into it mainly but it mainly comes from university. Do you ever think
Okay.
that that'll cross over into your world of doing websites, of partnering a designer and a developer up rather than working agile? You work more tactile.
To be honest with you, everything is pretty close knit already. Like, not official partnerships, but, you know, we have UI and UX designers, which are hybrid designers, but then we also have specialist UI designers and specialist UX designers that we use that just have a pure focus either on UX or UI. And in a weird way, the partnership is there with the developer via the tools that we use. So in Figma, he can see the design process unfolding, or she can comment on the design work as we're progressing to let us know, to give us their thoughts or as why it will work, why it won't work. So I feel like that bond is already there.
If they were going out for for lunch, it would regularly be the UI team going out for a lunch. It wouldn't be the one person from each department or from each team would be going out for lunch together. Like it's they all have their
Yes,
separate rooms.
probably. Yeah. So I guess what you mentioned about the creatives, you know, they completely rely on each other for their careers. So yeah, there's a stronger bond there, isn't there? Like, they can, if they wanted to leave the team, they'd easily fit into another team straight away. You know, they're not reliant on another person leaving their job as well and actually going along with them. I don't know. What do they do? Do they share a salary as well?
Probably share a bank account. Share girlfriends. No, I'm joking. Do you listen to music while you work?
I mainly listen to podcasts.
While you work?
Yeah, I like listening to podcasts. Yeah. What do you listen to?
It depends on how busy I am. So if I need to get a lot done, I just stick on some sort of dance music and I just go fucking nuts and crack out as much as I can. But if it's in the morning and I'm just doing some research, I'll just stick on one of my own playlists, which will be a lot more relaxed. And then once it gets to the afternoon, I put some funky town music on.
Nice.
Yesterday I was listening to a playlist that was 80s inspired Japanese funk that one of the interns recommended. It was class.
Nice. So you're quite motivated by music then while you're working.
Yeah, actually, now that you mention it, I would be. Makes a big difference. I don't get any less work done. I probably get more work done. I don't know. How do you concentrate on listening to a podcast and
I don't know.
and
I
working
tend
at
to
the
just
same time?
absorb it. I think it depends on the task as well.
Yep.
So if I'm working on something that's like a deep problem that needs solving, then I think I'd have to listen to maybe some relaxing music of some kind. But if it's just something repetitive that I'm doing, because sometimes you just do get repetitive tasks while you're designing, then a podcast is fine. Because I don't need to concentrate too much on solving a problem.
The only time I've digested a book while working was 3 years ago when I was freelancing and I was there for 2 weeks. I think I actually did 2 books, and all I was doing was I don't know, what do they call floor plans? Just doing a bird's eye view of blueprints of floor plans for buildings.
Okay, got you. Seamus.
Yep.
A web designer decided to use right-aligned text. His boss yelled at him for it because it wasn't justified.
No. God, that's a bad one.
Yeah, that's another bad one. Yeah. What do you call a UX designer who's head of the armed forces?
Go on, Tommy.
General Assembly.
That one's a bit niche.
Boom.
Speaking of UX, what about these mouses, these Apple mouses, and the charging? You can't put batteries in them, you have to charge them, and the charging port.
This Apple mouse?
No, that's not. What is that?
This is a £5 Logitech mouse, which I find works much better than my Magic mouse, and the battery lasts probably 10 times longer.
No battery, no phone.
Look how sexy it isn't.
Is that not really small in your hand? Does that not give you cramps?
Oh, it's lovely.
Oh yeah, I've sort of got used to mine now. I can now draw with the mouse. So they've got the charging port on the underside of the mouse.
Oh,
so
okay.
what happens if your battery dies, or if it's run out of thing? You have to plug it in to here, so you can't use it.
I didn't get one of those with my 2012 iMac.
No, how are you? We were in university in 2012, surely. You're running a business with a 2012 iMac. Man, you're more talented than I thought. Well, that's us, folks.
Hope you enjoyed this week's... I don't know what to say.
That's us, folks.
That's right.
That's right. And that's our outro. That's all from us, folks.
Do I say something?
Fuck me. What am I saying? Just it's gone.
I've even forgotten what I just said.
Hi everybody, I'm Seamus.
And I'm Barry.
And welcome to the Design and Podcast. Wow, wow, wow. Well, I'm throwing a sound effect. That was a cat. You just threw your cat across the room. We've done a rebrand. Yes, please, go for it.
Follow us on Instagram. You twat.
Go again.
Follow us on Instagram.
I'm not going to say anything. Just you're
a dick. I quit.
Fuck this shit.
Follow us on Instagram at the Design and Podcast.
And do you want me to edit that and slow it down?
You mean speed it up?
Alright, go on, I'll not speak. Look, I'll cover my back. Go ahead. You can't hear me.
Follow.
Just go ahead.
Can you leave the room?
Oh, I'll put myself on mute. Go on.
You've added an extension to your cupboard as well.
Hold on. I'm going to put myself on mute. Go for it.
Follow us on Instagram at the Design and Podcast.
For all your design and Instagram needs.
That was terrible.
It was the comedic timing that made it.